And we're live.
Hello and welcome back to another A Fatality of Bodily Fluids episode of the First Time Watchers podcast.
Because we like to watch.
My name is Tim Costa.
I'm Romano de Silva.
This is Walter Vinci.
And if you'd like to send feedback, remember to email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com. Speaking of feedback, we received an email from listener Mike Close regarding our Bloodsport episode.
Yes!
So he writes, "Hello, FTW. Wow, I was so happy that you guys reviewed this movie. I was really looking forward to listening to this episode, knowing that Tim had not seen this film before. The training montage was made before it was a cliche. It's done in such earnest and takes itself completely seriously. It's amazing. JCVD gets strung up in a torture machine, splitting him in half." We didn't talk about that, by the way. Before he splits a torture machine in half itself, he pretty much just gets the shit beat out of him, and that turns him into a fighting god. I must have been 8 or 9 years old when this was out doing its rounds on cable TV, so it was probably the coolest thing I had ever seen. I would watch this movie over and over, and the montage was always my favorite part. Well, other than the guy fighting like a monkey, another part we didn't talk about. Regards, Mike C. Yes, I forgot to mention, the guy fighting like a monkey, not very PC. Not very PC. It doesn't hold up that well. But yeah, I totally forgot to bring up the guy JCVD breaking that machine just out of sheer will. That was great. That was pretty good. Thank you, Mike, for the email. I'm very happy that you enjoyed the episode. It was an enjoyable movie to discuss. Absolutely. Anyways, you can always email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com in case you have any feedback like Mike did. This week, we will be discussing 2 films, the new Mortal Kombat, and a list of shame for one of us, Dr. Strangelove. But before we get into that, it is time for Yay or Nay. This is the part of the show where we discuss what we have seen recently on our own. Walter.
All right, I got one thing for you. I watched a neat little series that came out not too long ago, actually. It came out 2021. I heard about it on, I think it was either HJY or EEI. This is a Robbery, the world's greatest art heist. March 18th, 1990, 13 works of art are stolen from the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Guards admitted 2 men posing as police officers responding to a disturbance call, and the thieves tied the guards up and looted the museum. This case has not ever been solved.
I just listened to a podcast on it.
The art is still missing. And evidently, at the Gardner Museum where the art was, there's still empty frames hanging in the gallery where the art has been missing. Pretty interesting story. I think part of what takes away from this is that you really can't come to a definitive conclusion as to who did it and why, because it hasn't been solved yet. There's a lot of speculation on who it could have been. There's ties to the Italian and Irish mafia in Boston that it could have gone way. One of the best parts of it is they talked to a guy who was a legit art thief for a while, and he's been out of prison. He's just chilling at this on this ranch. But he could tell you all of probably tons of awesome stories. They talked to him a lot. Entertaining enough. So I would say it's a yay. It's definitely worth the time that I put in. It's it's the total of 3 hours and 30 minutes running time. But definitely, I mean, to me, does look like an inside job given how everything is all set up. It's just a matter of finding who tipped off whom to be able to make this happen, and then also where is the art, because no one's seen it.
What was the name of it again?
This is a Robbery, the world's greatest art heist.
Yeah, I just listened to a podcast on it. It's so funny you bring it up.
And it's called that because when the 2 fake police officers came in and they cuffed up the 2 night watchmen at the museum, they're like, "Gentlemen, this is a robbery." They just kind of announced it. Like you would in a movie. It's kind of wild.
Wow, interesting.
Definitely worth checking out. I would say it's a yay.
Cool. One thing for me that is definitely a yay is a rewatch for me, and that is probably one of my favorite comedies, and it's from 1968. It is The Odd Couple, starring Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. Wally, you've seen this, I'm sure?
I have. Yeah, I've not seen it in a while, but I have seen it. I've seen that. I've also seen the TV series. I believe there was a remake that
Yes.
I did not see. That I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah. Hermano, have you ever seen The Odd Couple?
No.
It's like grumpy old men, but they're younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm confusing it with Grumpy Old Men.
If you, this is like the movie that started essentially their comedy team, and if you enjoyed Grumpy Old Men, that came out like 30 years later, then you would like this movie because it is so effing funny, and it works so well. Not just because of how perfectly cast it is, but also how sharply written and performed it is. Every line is really wonderfully delivered to maximize laughs, and it's also really well shot. The lighting and staging of all the characters are really great. It's based off of a play by Neil Simon, and Walter Matthau had actually played the same role in the play, and so I think you can tell that he was very familiar with the character. Just the way that he moves on screen, and how there's so much subtlety regarding some jokes, just in his messiness and stuff like that. Especially the opening scene at a poker table. It's really it's just brilliantly funny, and it has one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen, where Jack Lemmon is in a restaurant with Walter Matthau, and Lemmon needs to like clear his sinuses, and the sounds that he makes. Oh my god, it is so fucking funny. Hermano, I definitely recommend if you ever have a chance. I think you would find this amusing as well. It's pretty good. So obviously high A for The Odd Couple, 1968. What do you got, Hermano?
All right, got a couple things. So watching Bloodsport last week really got the juices flowing, and I decided that it had been a while, it had been long enough. I had to rewatch The Quest from 1996. It's on Tubi. I watched it with ads. Like I joked last week, Jean-Claude Van Damme has been in a lot of films with a very similar plot, with an underground fighting tournament of some sort, and this is, I think, maybe one of the last ones he did involving a fighting tournament. Basically, it revolves around him being a street performer. He was a street kid. He's grown up now, and he kind of looks after all the other street kids. He gets mixed up with the police in the mob or something. To escape, he escapes onto a ship, which, unbeknownst to him, is headed off to like Thailand. And he runs into Roger Moore there, who plays a pirate or a smuggler of some sort. He sells Jean-Claude Van Damme off to some dude on some, I think they call it Mutai Island.
Mutai Island?
Yeah. Jean-Claude Van Damme gets trained by the kickboxers there, and he gets involved in this underground tournament. It's very similar to Bloodsport. It's practically a remake. It's got a lot of the same feel to it, except instead of just fighters from around the world. Well, not fighters from around the world. In this one, the thing is like one fighter from like various countries. So like you'll see, like dude from China, dude from Japan. I mean, Korea, Turkey, and so on. But it's fun. I mean, it like I was saying about Bloodsport, it doesn't have the same charm because it is a bit more competently made. I mean, I didn't even mention it's directed by Jean-Claude Van Damme as well. But it was fun revisiting it. It definitely, watching Bloodsport and The Quest back to back, I think Bloodsport definitely reigns supreme. But The Quest, you can do worse, even though people on IMDb are kind of middling on it. So overall, it's kind of a mild yay. If you like Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know what you're getting. So that's The Quest. And then I started watching a new show on HBO called Mare of Easttown. You guys heard of Mare of Easttown?
Yes, I hear the first couple episodes are pretty good, and Kate Winslet, of course, is reigning supreme in this.
Yes, she is. I'll read the synopsis here. A detective in a small Pennsylvania town investigates a local murder while trying to keep her life from falling apart. Tim, you've often mentioned in the past how you find it really brave when all these well-known actresses, shun all their makeup and just go au naturel.
Have I?
Yeah.
Are you ascribing certain things to me that
I'm putting words in your mouth? Yes. I'm putting words in your mouth.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, she's basically a small town detective. She's got this this kind of history in the town. She was like a star athlete, or at least known for one big moment as an athlete. So she had a little minor celebrity, and then she became a detective. She has kind of this this case that she's been working on for a year that the whole town is kind of on her about, not solving yet. It's like one of her friends, one of her former teammates' daughters went missing, and she's been missing for a year, and the whole town is really on her, feeling like maybe she's not up to task for solving this case. And then another girl goes missing. This one actually is found, but all of a sudden she's thrust into another murder case. So it's really well done. Like all the intermingling story stuff and plot is really well done. Just kind of meeting all the first episode is basically like, here's all the characters, and it kind of ends with the cliffhanger of the murder. And then the second episode is just kind of a continuation of that, and just getting more of the relationships with all the characters and stuff like that. It's pretty well done. You know, like she's playing kind of like this no nonsense, kind of really hard-nosed detective type, and, you know, kind of hard to crack, and people are always trying to, you know, figure her out and try to get on her good side, but she's really just kind of had a tough life, and, you know, you could kind of read it on her face and stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of in right now. The first two episodes, I think, like you said, Tim, you heard it, they were good, and I would say, yeah, they're pretty solid overall. And of course, it's like a crime thriller mystery thing, so I'm usually hooked on those anyway. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, I'd say check it out. I mean, so far so good. And it's directed by Craig Zobel, who directed Compliance, and what else did he do? Z for Zachariah, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, if you like those films, good direction in this show too. So yay for Mare of Easttown. So Wally has all of these pods, or whatever they're called, which is just plain weird.
And a hologram that I guess only works once?
That can't explain anything.
Hello, first-time watchers.
Mark Herner?
Oh, hi, Mark.
I heard you were watching some cinema films, so I came by to say hello.
You don't have to know anything about whatever this is, do you?
No, I'm afraid I don't. We don't have mad scientists in Grass anymore since my cousin.
Cousin?
But you know what show is relatively brilliant?
The In Session Film Podcast.
That's right, Tim. The In Session Film Podcast is JD and Brendan.
I like to ride Brendan like a bomb into Russia.
What was that, Tim?
What? Nothing.
And each week...
Yahoo!
Ahem. Each week, the In Session Film Podcast chooses a movie to review.
Then creates a top 3 list based on what they just saw.
This week, the In Session Film Podcast reviews the latest Mortal Kombat.
And continue their Michael Mann series with Last of the Mohicans.
Sounds super.
Right. You can find their show on Apple Podcasts by searching for, you guessed it, the In Session Film Podcast.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So if you're in the mood for more great movie reviews and discussion,
then check out the In Session Film Podcast on Apple Podcasts.
or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
Did Mork say he had a mad scientist cousin?
I think you're right.
But you know, Mork does sound awfully familiar.
Okay, let's talk about Mortal Kombat.
I had a better idea. How about you two get on your knees?
And take turns sucking my sack.
Do you have any fucking idea who you're talking to? I'm wanted in over 35 countries for shit you fucking ballerinas couldn't even imagine.
You're angry.
Oh, fucking nothing gets by you, does it?
Good. You should be. Your failure.
Failure. Fucking failure. Let me educate you, motherfucker. I'm Kano! I'm the Black fucking Dragon! And who are you two, huh? You some fucking cave-dwelling hippie twirling his anal beads, taking orders from this wushu wanker who wears a hubcap as a helmet! Now sit down, shut up, and pass me a fucking egg roll! That was it, wasn't it? You all saw that. Laser beam! It's better than fireballs, you pussy! Come on, Kano! I knew I'd get mine first.
And just to warn people ahead of time, this will be a spoiler-filled discussion, so beware. The plot: MMA fighter Cole Young seeks out Earth's greatest champions in order to stand against the enemies of Outworld at a high-stakes battle for the universe. The director, Simon McQuoid? McQuoid. I'll go with McQuoid. The actors: Cole Young, Jessica McNamee, Josh Lawson, Joe Taslim, and others. Walter.
Yeah.
What did you think of Mortal Kombat?
Well, all right. So I feel that this is worthy of a since we're also reviewing Doctor Strangelove, I feel this is also worthy of a colon after the title. As in Tim says, we're reviewing Mortal Kombat, comma, do we really have to? This movie is dull as fucking dishwater. Fucking boring. Like, all right, I get you did the gore, the costumes look cool, but this movie is dull. It's bad. It's not even like fun bad. The first Mortal Kombat with Robin Shou, 10 times the movie this is. That movie got it right. This movie somehow missed the mark every single chance it got. The characters that I care about, they're all secondary characters. I don't give a shit about Cole. I don't. And like the whole time we're waiting for his power up, and you get to his power up, it's a gold shirt with knives. Boring. Like you don't even do anything cool. It's not like you become like Ermac or Rain or Smoke. I would have accepted Smoke. You know, that would have been kind of cool. But nope. All the characters that I've learned to enjoy and play in the game, all reduced to like just side do nothing roles. Even Shang Tsung, man, like should have been a powerhouse for this movie. Nope, we're not doing that either. This movie, it's so slapped together, in it just feels rushed, and it wasn't engaging. It wasn't interesting. No one really did anything in the movie, even when it gets like the climax of the movie, like, all right, so we've been following this guy this whole time, but the climax fight, nothing to do with him, by the way. Absolutely nothing to do with him. It would have been better off if they just kind of followed like a better map of the video game, than introduce this character that I've never heard of in any of the games that I've played so far. And just left it at being like here's the freaking live action thing that came out like in the earlier 2000s was still better than this. That made sense, and they had Cyrax, by the way, and they did a better job than this movie.
Hermano, are you as down as Walter is?
No, I don't think I'm going to be. I mean, I went into it knowing that it probably wasn't going to. I shouldn't say top the original because it's not quite what I mean, but I from the trailer that I saw, I felt like tonally they had shifted and they were going for a little bit more serious, hard R, gore, focusing more on that aspect of Mortal Kombat and not so much the cheese factor, which I think the original 1995 one definitely had more of a like all these actors know exactly what type of movie they're in. They're all hamming it up and having fun. At least it seems like they're having fun with playing their respective characters. So I just kind of lowered my expectations a little bit and was just hoping for something cool. Like I thought the opening was pretty solid with, that whole thing, that whole setup, and not exactly knowing where it was going, because the last Mortal Kombat game I played was probably like part 3. And that was a really long time ago. So I hadn't really kept up on Mortal Kombat lore or anything. So I thought there maybe some surprises in there. And there were, I wasn't sure if I just didn't know these characters or they were, some of them were newer. But overall, I thought it was fine. It's not like great. I wasn't like blown away. I thought there were some wow moments, like some of the fatalities. They did go a little cheese with like when they would say like something like flawless victory or fatality after they ended someone. But I really liked the tone of the original better. I mean, I saw it in the theaters opening weekend. I was working at an arcade at the time, our local arcade, Dream Machine, RIP, rest in peace, not around anymore. And it was amazing. Like that score, that like techno, whatever, the Mortal Kombat song. And say what you will about the original, it's total cheese and it's not a great movie, but there were some awesome moments there, like some really crowd pleasing moments. Like the Johnny Cage Scorpion fight is awesome. You're not gonna top Christopher Lambert as Raiden. You're not gonna. Shang Tsung in the original, I think, was much better, and he was hamming it up a lot, and I kind of liked that. This one, it's played much more serious and straight, and I thought kind of the wrong choice. But again, like they obviously wanted to go a little harder. I don't know if the cheese and the hard R stuff would necessarily go well together. And of course, the original was also sort of neutered a bit because they weren't really able to go as hardcore, because I think it was PG-13 possibly. So it's fine. Like, the story, you follow it. It's basically the Mortal Kombat story. The tournament of the best fighters in the world, which I've been watching a lot of movies about special fighting tournaments lately. But it was just okay. Like I think I liked all the characters and the actors that played him in the original better than pretty much everyone in this film.
I've never seen the original Mortal Kombat movie. It's just something that I probably didn't have much of an interest in at the time when it was released. And although it is interesting to listen, hear back on people waxing nostalgic on that movie. I think there's a big 90s nostalgia factor with that film. And watching this new one, it's interesting because it feels like a movie that belongs in the 90s. I think it gets better, or at least more fun, in the second half. The prologue and that initial setup takes things, I think, a little too seriously. It doesn't allow for a good introduction to the goofiness that we're going to see later on. The editing is pretty sloppy overall, and the storytelling isn't really that well put together until that second half, and they abandoned any pretense of plot and actually just get down to the actual fighting and silliness. The whole rules, how the rules work in here, I'm not sure. What the powers and the worlds and any of the other fantasy elements actually work. In the end, it doesn't really matter because, like I said, once you get into that second half, it's all just bonkers. It's kind of crazy. I do like the video game like gore effects. There's a couple really gnarly kills. One in particularly where the dude with the hat
Kung Lao,
splits that chick in half.
That's his fatality from the video game.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. It's really well executed. It looks nice. I really appreciated that. The head squash, that big dude with the hammer. That was pretty cool too. I think the character that I liked the most in this movie was Josh Lawson as Kano. And I think it's because he has the actual most personality and charisma of the bunch. There's not much charisma going on with any of the other characters or actors.
Nope. He's the only entertaining thing when it comes to like watching all of this.
Yeah.
I wanted more Kano.
I can see. And there are scenes where it looks like they probably reshot or put in more of him on the fly, knowing that he was really hamming it up as his character. And and probably just inserted more. I wouldn't be surprised if the studio notes or whatever. Maybe it was the director seeing what he had and saying, let's do a little bit more Josh Lawson here. And he certainly hams it up. You know, and Joe Taslim, it's nice to see him get a larger movie role like this. It's unfortunate that his face is hidden most of the time. Because if you've seen a movie like The Night Comes for Us, for example, he has a lot of charisma. He's very good in that movie, and his fighting skills, you know, to be up against somebody like Iko Uwais, believably, in that film, I think, you know, he has a lot going for him, and it's just a shame that his talents aren't that well displayed here. You know, I do see, I'm kind of hit and miss on the fight sequences because I think some of them are cool and then some of them are just not edited well. And they get lost amongst, because you're going back and forth between fights between different characters and different locations. And I'm like, why can't we just focus? Like when they get transported by Raiden to various locations and you get the one where Jax is on the bridge, you know, with the spikes underneath him and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I kind of recognize that, and I'm like, we can't stay here for more than 5 seconds. I mean, this movie's fine. You know, it's not terrible. I'm definitely not as down as you, Wally, on this movie.
Oh, I couldn't stand this movie.
No?
This movie, I was like, I just want this to be over.
There...
I mean, it's cool to see Nathan Jones, the Colossus of Bago Road from the WWF. In this movie as Reiko, guy with a hammer.
Okay.
Like I recognize him. He's also, I believe, also Nathan Jones is also in Fury Road too, as the giant enforcer guy.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
I wish I can remember the character. He had a weird sexualized name, but
yeah, is it Morton, one of them Morton Joe's sons, right? The big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this movie just even the makeup jobs on these things were terrible. Like. Looking at like Cabal, like he looked like a bad cosplay, and then what's supposed to be like Melina is just like they just put like lipstick on the side of her face to make it look like she's got like the scarred mouth. I'm like, what? Come on, like you didn't put any effort into this. It looks. I mean, like I'm with Hermano that it should have been taken far more into the camp range.
Oh yeah.
Instead of trying to play this, because like even the cuts for like the fight scene, like there's the scene where Kano is fighting Liu Kang like in the like that like little practice arena, and it's like cut where you never get any impact of what the hell's going on. There's like no sense of scope. It's like wide shot sweep. Close-up guy falling on the ground. Yeah, you never see the sweep connect.
Right.
And they do it over and over again.
Well, I think that was supposed to be some sort of reference to the game of how cheap the move was, and how.
It's fine, but show me it in the wide shot. You know what I mean? Like, let me see him jump over, and then like, and as he like comes down to land, like Liu Kang, you know, sweeps again and like takes his legs out from under him. Like, but don't like go wide and then like. Just a reaction shot of a guy falling on the ground, then go back to wide again. Like I know he's swept because like we see him kind of duck down, but like show me I want to see a fight scene.
Hermano, how do the powers work with the dragon birthmark and shit like that? Explain this to me.
Like I said, the last game I played was part 3 years ago, and from what I remember, that was not at all included as part of the lore of the game.
Nope.
I think it's something that was added for this film, the whole thing with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, so explain the rules to me, how it works here.
All right, so if you have a tattoo, you have a ticket to go to this tournament. As long as Outworld doesn't cheat and send someone to kill you so that you can't beat them.
Well, wait a minute. It's not a tattoo, it's a birthmark, right?
Yeah, it's like a birthmark.
But if I kill you, right, before then, I can Highlander it from you. Because then I get your birthmark.
Oh.
And then I get to do some sort of cool, weird, whatever power I get.
I see.
Yeah, the power was inside them all along, Tim.
Yeah, no, I got that. But how that manifests itself, how it comes out of people, and like, what is the arc of these people? Like, okay, you got to get Kano super mad, really in touch with his angry emotions, but then what about other people? Like what are their arcs to reach this this higher plane, if you will? Like, what about Sonya? Like, I don't understand what she was going for, and I don't understand what anybody else. I don't understand anybody else's arcs or methods to reach this higher plane.
You have to get your Arcana, Tim. And you know what? I don't know if I checked out in this movie and I missed it, but did Sonya ever actually do the awesome leg scissors that I used to spam the shit out of back in the day?
I don't think so.
Because Bridget Nielsen did it in the first movie.
What else do you guys want to mention in this movie before we wrap it up?
I liked Kano too. I thought he was probably the best thing about the film overall, though I think it was a bit much with. He was basically like a one-liner delivery machine. In the original, he's played, I think, closer to the games where he's kind of more of like a slimy, backstab you type guy, where he's not necessarily overtly comedic like in this one. So I think I preferred that more. Like I preferred the more like the, I'm a total douche, slimy guy and stuff, and kind of leave more of the jokey stuff in the original film to like Johnny Cage and stuff like that. But
what about
I don't know.
All right.
I thought it was a bit much.
Speaking of Johnny Cage, why is Cole going to find him of all people?
I don't know, because he's a familiar character that's going to set up a sequel.
Stupid.
He's a popular character in the game, so it's kind of a no-brainer that they eventually bring him in, of course. But yeah, I'm assuming it's all tied into those birthmarks again. Like, it's kind of weird that like sometimes it makes me question like reality. I know this film is obviously not set in reality or anything, but like these people all have the exact same birthmark, and they're still questioning whether like what does it all mean? What is this? Like, how can we all have the same birthmark? They're all like just nonplussed, and I'm like, dude, there's clearly something supernatural at play here. There's no fucking way this is possible.
See,
like, everyone's
someday somebody is going to crack a code for making a video game movie in this like, and I'm not talking about a video game movie based off of a video game that already has a narrative feature, like the Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider movie that came out a couple years ago is a pretty decent movie actually, and it follows almost beat for beat the more recent reboot, Tomb Raider reboot, Lara Croft reboot, and but when it comes to a platformer or a fighting game, someday is going to crack the code, and we're all going to be like, that's what should have been done the whole time,
We got that we got that movie, Tim. It's called Scott Pilgrim versus the World. If that's not Streets of Rage, but with musicians, I don't know what it is.
But that's also based off of a comic, is it not?
It is.
Okay, so that it doesn't count really. It doesn't count. So, and I get your point, and I definitely see the parallels there. But I'm talking about something specifically based off of a video game, and a video game with not much narrative. So you have to create something, and this, there are good elements and there are bad elements, but the bad elements outweigh it a little bit because they try to force this narrative and force this serious tone in the first half that doesn't work once they abandon it, because like what's the point of the serious tone when in the second half there is no seriousness? There's a bunch of silliness, especially so you got Scorpion who comes out of hell for how was his journey? How did he develop his powers and his journey through hell or something like that? See, we're following too many characters here. We can't follow the most important people and the most interesting people. And even in the beginning, when you have Sub-Zero come out of nowhere, like, well, wait a minute, what is their relationship here? Why is he after this guy who becomes Scorpion? Why is he so angry? Why does he want to kill this family? I don't get it. What's their backstory?
Here's the unlock code. I'm going to give it to y'all right now. Actually, you take Joe Taslim, you take Iko Uwais, and you get Gareth Evans, and you let him make Street Fighter.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I can see that. But you also have to break it down to a a relative simplicity. You know what I mean? You can't.
You make it the original Street Fighter though, where you don't have Bison. The main villain in Street Fighter was Sagat.
Right.
And that's where Joe Taslim comes in. He's Sagat. You won't have I don't know if you're gonna find a giant TIE fighter that's the size of Sagat. But Joe Taslim as Sagat and Iko Uwais as Ryu. He meets the side characters along the way, and it ends the way it does the way it does in the video game, where Sagat takes the mother of all dragon punches, gets the scar across his chest along his face, loses an eye over it, and then the sequel. You get the tease of like Sagat's like just wants revenge, and you see like the cape, the hat, and the red of like Bison, but you don't ever really see him. And he's like, if you come with me, I can get you the revenge you're looking for. Bang! Then you get your Street Fighter 2.
All right. Anything else to mention before we get into grades? We good?
I'm good.
All right, Hermano, what would you grade this?
Well, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Paul W.S. Anderson directed the better version of this film.
Wow.
B-.
Wow. Hey, same grade for me, actually. B-. It's not terrible. It's kind of fun.
It has its moments.
Yeah, it has its moments, exactly. Wally, you going full F?
D+.
D+.
Because and it's what saves it from being a complete fail is the fact that I got the best scene in the movie out of Kano when they're fighting it's supposed to be Reptile, but it's called something else apparently, because I guess they can't call it Reptile. When they're fighting the thing and he just punches it in the chest and he pulls out his heart, he's like, hey! Like, that's the only cool part in the movie that that sold it for me. Like, that's a Kano finisher.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. All the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out, and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. Get ready for the Jubilee, hurrah, hurrah. We'll give the hero 3 times 3, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the laurel wreath is ready now to place upon his royal brow, and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. In 1861, hurrah, hurrah.
He brings the popcorn. She brings the roses. Subject Cinema, a tasty new film topic each week with a side order of film reviews.
Yum.
T.C. Kirkham.
But I'm Jim.
Kim Brown.
What?
Over 500,000 listeners, and you could be the next one. SubjectCinema.com. Real movies for real people.
Hurrah, hurrah, away the end of slavery, hurrah.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Stone wine when Johnny comes marching home, and we all drink stone wine when Johnny comes marching home.
Okay, let's talk about Dr. Strangelove.
Fine, I can hear you now, Dimitri. Clear and plain and coming through fine. I'm coming through fine too, eh? Good, then... Well, then, as you say, we're both coming through fine. Good. Well, it's good that you're fine, then, and I'm fine. I agree with you. It's great to be fine. Now then, Dimitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb. The bomb, Dimitri. The hydrogen bomb. Well, now, what happened is one of our base commanders, he had a sort of, well, he went a little funny in the head. You know, just a little funny. And he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country. Well, let me finish, Dimitri. Let me finish, Dimitri. Well, listen, how do you think I feel about it?
The plot. An insane general triggers a path to nuclear holocaust that a war room full of politicians and generals frantically tries to stop. And just to warn people ahead of time, this will also be a spoiler-filled discussion. The director, Stanley Kubrick. The actors, Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Peter Sellers, and Sterling Hayden, and some others, too. Hermano, this was a list of shame film for you. So what did you think of Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove?
All right. If I haven't already lost all credibility, I'm about to now. I just watched this last night, so I haven't had a lot of time to sit with it. I think maybe I just wasn't in the right mood to watch it last night. And I didn't realize it was a full-on comedy going into it. I thought maybe there was aspects of that.
This sounds awfully familiar from a couple of weeks ago when you didn't realize Repo the Genetic Opera was in a full-on musical.
Apparently, I don't do my homework very much on films. And like I said, Dr. Strangelove for me just was never on my radar for whatever reason. I think I had already selected my must-view Stanley Kubrick films, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, things like that. Like I felt like I'd already seen all the ones I wanted to from his filmography, 2001, of course. And I don't know, I just always just kind of put it off or never really invested much time in wanting to watch it or anything. So yeah, I mean, one, I was very familiar with the image of Peter Sellers from the film. He looked goofy. I assumed he was going to be some sort of comedic character, and of course he is. But he's literally in the film for like 10 minutes.
Oh, wait a minute. He plays 3 different characters.
Yep.
Oh, he does?
Yes. He plays
Merkin Muffley, the president.
Yep.
He's Dr. Strangelove, and he's the RAF officer assigned to
the British guy.
The British RAF officer.
He plays all 3 of those guys?
Yes.
All 3 of those guys.
I had no idea.
That just goes to show how good he is in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you guys just kind of gave me more of an appreciation for him because I had no idea he was those other 2 characters. Completely unrecognizable as the other 2, especially the president. Like, I mean, they just don't even look like the same person. But as far as, like I was saying, like the image of the Dr. Strangelove character, I was familiar with that, of course. I'd heard much about George C. Scott in the film. And for me, George C. Scott is my MVP for the film.
Yep.
I thought what he was doing was pretty awesome in the film overall. And I think, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like this film's not like a film that I would expect to make people uproariously laugh. I was amused. I don't think I ever laughed. I may have like just slightly arched my lips for a smile, just very slightly. But I'm about to like just lose. Everyone's about to lose their mind about at what I'm about to say, but it just kind of reminded me of Police Academy.
I could see that. I could see that a little bit. I have a different comparison than you on this, but I could kind of see where you're coming from here.
Just kind of, I mean, just on a few levels, like not that they're even remotely like the same quality of film, just like the idea that you take this otherwise respected institution, or you have the police force on one end, and on this you have like kind of the whole military aspect, and you just kind of make a satire around it, and this kind of buffoonish sort of absurdist comedy. They both have that. And to be fair, Police Academy made me laugh a lot more. Like there's a lot more overt comedy in that, where this is a bit more, I don't think subtle is quite the right word, but maybe more smart comedy, where you're supposed to really pay attention, and not everything's visual, and just you're supposed to focus on the scenes and how they just kind of go on, and people talking about their, what was it? The one guy kept harping about it, his hydration or something, or
fluids.
Yeah, his fluids. And like a fluoride in the water or some shit like that. And I mean, it's one of those films I appreciate, but I think, like I mentioned this to me immediately after she asked me this morning, like what I thought of it. And I'm like, I think I would have appreciated this much more if I was the age I am now when this came out. Like, I just feel like I appreciate it as like a film that's probably like something that influenced other films, and like, you know, it's probably ahead of its time.
So if you were the age you are in 1964?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
There's been so many movies like this since 1964 that, you know, it's do the exact same thing, and I feel like I've watched a ton of them, and I don't know. I just feel like, you know, I feel like I would have appreciated more if like I hadn't seen all those others, obviously, and I had seen this when it first came out. Like, again, I'm putting it up against the rest of his filmography too, and to me, it doesn't hold a candle to the other three I mentioned. Like, you know, those are the top three for me for Stanley Kubrick that I've seen. So this to me seems like, of the films I've seen of his, like the lesser in his filmography.
Wally, you've been a big fan of this movie for a while, I think. So what was this revisit like for you?
This movie, I will compare it to The Big Lebowski, actually, for me. Because this movie just gets funnier and funnier the more I watch it. Like the subtle nuances. I'm forgetting to spoil it, man. My favorite joke is the bit with Peter Sellers as Lionel Mandrake trying to make a phone call to stop the end of the world, and the arresting officer won't give him change because it's destroying public property.
Yes.
So you should just shoot that lock. I can't do that. That's public property. And after this, you're gonna have to answer to a higher power. He's like, oh, who's that? He's like, the Coca-Cola Company. Ridiculous. And I just love that kind of humor. And so this movie really speaks to me just on a bunch of different levels. Like, Hermano's spot on with George C. Scott as Buck Turgison. Just his just literal scene chewing throughout the movie.
Right.
You know, Peter Sellers as Dr. Strangelove, who and apparently too during the making of the movie, Peter Sellers ad-libbed a lot of his lines.
Sure.
Like, he just improv'd a lot of the shit, and if you watch like the background people, they start breaking character, and they get the giggles in some scenes when you see them as a group.
Which is really interesting when you think about Stanley Kubrick as a filmmaker, as a perfectionist, and he kind of allowed that or worked with it in this movie.
But Peter Sellers is obviously a master talent, and also I think it jives with what Kubrick was trying to do. He's trying to make an absurdist black comedy about the end of the world. You know, just how absurd it all is, that we as a species could come up with the best way possible to completely wipe ourselves off the face of the planet and everybody else with us. And just how easy it actually would be to do it. You know, we've made it supremely easy to just push a button, to just give a command, and that's it. It's game over.
Right.
And I think that someone like Peter Sellers, you know, ad-libbing and getting the crack-ups from people and all that, I think plays into the type of just sheer absurdity this movie actually is trying to be. You know, Buck Turgison is like, we can't let he'll see the big board. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're worried about, like such minute things. They're forgetting, they're always losing the big picture.
Right.
And that's the sell here. It's, you know, for someone, a perfectionist like Kubrick, I think this plays into this absolutely played into what he was trying to do.
Well, what he tries to
as
do,
I understand it as well,
what he tries to do in you know, a number of his films that deal with war, or I guess all the films that he did that deals with war, is he just exposes, you know, how dumb war is, and honestly, I think this movie works well as a companion piece to Paths of Glory, another movie that we talked about a long time ago. Yep. In terms, you know, where Paths of Glory is a very serious take on how awful war is, how pointless it is, and he shows the absurdity with it in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you also catch James Earl Jones in this movie, by the way?
It just pops his head out from the bottom of the plane. I'm like, wait a minute, I know that guy. Yeah, no, I had seen this movie before, maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, and I honestly hadn't remembered much of it. But Yeah, I appreciated this revisit. I really, I think he works well going the comedic route here. If anything, I give Kubrick credit for being able to maintain his filmmaking style and aesthetic and making it work within the confines of a comedy. He has an interesting balance of tones where I think you were talking about that earlier, where he finds that balance between the absurd possibilities of this and complete nonsense. But it just, they work well hand in hand. It's really funny you say that, Hermano, that you didn't even know that was Peter Sellers in all three roles, and I think it perfectly, highlights this great cast, and his roles. They're really wonderfully unique and individual, and he deserves all the credit in the world for being able to pull it off. This movie is also really well shot. Of course, it's a Kubrick film, but he never skimps when finding great uses of light or that depth of field. Not as much of the rigid camera or should I say symmetry that he finds in a lot of his other films, but it's just. I don't know, a camera that's really well placed so that you can see a lot of what's going on. I love those overhead shots in the war room with the circular table and the overhead lights. It's just a really good shot. And then other shots there, like later on when the president in the foreground talking with the Russian ambassador, and then George C. Scott going insane, and he does that accidental tumble, which was really an accident in real life, but Kubrick kept it because Scott worked so well in covering it up or just making it seem like it was, supposed to happen. I really appreciated this movie. I don't think it's among his best. If anything, it's I don't know. It's hard to rate some of his movies because they're so, most of them are so good. I think I would still put it, of the 10 of his that I've seen, I would put it kind of in the middle. Hermano, any other things you noticed in this movie that you want to mention?
Yeah, Wally reminded me of something. Like I also noticed the characters towards the end, specifically the Russian diplomat, like breaking character when Peter Sellers was doing his thing as Dr. Strangelove. And I'd heard about the George C. Scott tumble as well, and how amazing it was that he stayed in character and continued on with the line so that they could actually use that take. I think he even tried to talk Stanley Kubrick out of using it because he just didn't feel good about it or whatever. And like Stanley Kubrick just ended up using it because he thought it was so perfect or whatever. But yeah, like just a couple of things like that. And I was like, wow, like knowing what you know about Stanley Kubrick and how he's like one of these guys that you've always heard like, oh, he's a perfectionist. He has a complete mastery and control of like every film he's made and stuff like that, and to know that he kept those shots, and weirdly I think they work. Like the Russian diplomat like giggling at Peter Sellers as he's doing his little shtick there, I thought like it just felt right. Like it felt better than everyone else just staring like blank faced, like the one guy just kind of giggling at how funny whatever he was saying was. Like it didn't feel off. Like it didn't feel like a mistake. It just felt like a natural thing that would happen because he's being absurd in that moment. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think maybe it deserves a rewatch. I don't know that it's something that I'm gonna go back to right away or anything, but like I feel like I feel like I just needed to be in the right mood to watch it. Like I think last night, like I just I felt like I had to watch it. Like I'm like, oh, this is something I'm supposed to watch, and it's a list of shame I've heard and like all this stuff, and like I have to watch it now. And I literally was like, I set it up, I timed it perfectly so that it would end right as I had to go to bed. Like, what I mean? So it's like it wasn't even a dread or anything. It was just it felt like homework. Like I just wasn't in the mood. I didn't know it was a comedy completely. So it threw me off a little bit, and I think I just, like I said, I need to be in the right frame of mind to watch it. Now that I know what to expect, I think the next time I watch it, I may appreciate it more. So it might be one of those films for me. Like I know you guys, of course, have probably had this happen too. Like you just need multiple viewings of something sometimes to really get it.
I will say yes. A movie like Drive, for example, the first time I saw it, I kind of appreciated it, and I think I was a little taken aback by what I expected going into that movie. But certainly rewatches helped me appreciate what a masterpiece that movie is. So I'm not comparing these two movies. So, of course, it's just that's the first one that came to mind when you were, you know, bringing that up. But I wonder if, for a movie that's just around 90 minutes anyways, I wonder if the pacing of it affected you in terms of the back and forth between the war room, where the general was at the camp, and then the plane. Like, what did you think about all the scenes on the plane, Hermano? Did those work for you at all? Did any of them, did it just seem too long?
I think the plane was probably the least effective scenes in the film. Like, they were the least funny for me, at least personally. I don't think that they were like overtly funny compared to what was going on with the British officer and the insane general, or what was going on in the war room. I thought all that stuff was far more well done in what they were going for, what they were trying to achieve. The stuff in the plane just seemed kind of straightforward. Like, it just felt like, I don't know if that was the point, like necessarily, like they were just soldiers following orders, and it wasn't much he could like wring out of that as far as like, comparatively to the other absurd stuff that was happening in the film. So yeah, for me, the plane scenes just kind of felt weak compared to everything else.
What do you think, Wally, about the varying locales here?
Oh, it never bothered me because, like, I think that what you get, a couple of things. You have the people who are in charge who are clearly haven't thought this through. And you get the people on the ground that are just doing what they're told. And then you've got the outside influence in Jack Ripper, who's set this whole chain of events in motion. It's that not only have we built these things, but nobody actually ever thought this well enough out to think that something like this could actually happen. Like, this is impossible. Well, or like this situation is idiot proof. Well, then guess what you got? You got a bigger idiot, and it's what sets this whole thing in motion. And like, the people on the plane is there for the tension as to whether or not the people in the war room are going to be able to stop the people on the plane. Are they going to be able to stop the plans of Jenna Ripper and get these planes called back? And ultimately in this movie, they do, except for the one that got damaged.
Right.
Yeah, because there was no backup or secondary system or fail-safe system to stop the plane. And so you end up with everybody dies because no one thought it through far. Like, no one thought it through far enough.
We have guest Andrew Johnson on every once in a while, and I was reading his write-up on Letterboxd regarding this movie, and I find some of it pretty interesting, where he starts off by saying, one of those comedies that I find myself wishing was a bit zanier and fast-paced, yet the slow build and constant pull towards seriousness is part of what makes it so brilliant. So many moments rely on the joke being hidden beneath layers of deadpan remarks about very serious matters. The logic seems to be, 1, this situation is absolutely not funny. 2, the characters are adamant that it's not funny. 3, the reasons they think it's not funny is actually not funny. And 4, this is what makes it funny.
Yep.
Yeah. It's an interesting point in terms of how Kubrick, layers, I guess the comedy by putting on top of it these real situations, these real possibilities, I should say. And especially in a time of, you got to think 1964, right around the Cuban Missile Crisis, right around a height of Russian fear mongering and commie scares and all that kind of stuff. So,
and as a side note, this also takes place during Operation Chrome Dome.
Okay.
Operation Chrome Dome was a fleet of B-52s that were constantly circling the northern hemisphere just in case the Russians got frisky and tried to attack.
Right.
We'd actually have B-52s loaded with nukes already in the air. We lost 2 nukes this way, by the way, because no one thought this through.
Of course not. What do you expect from politicians? Yeah, so I don't know. It's this is like exactly the type of comedy you would expect Stanley Kubrick to make. Nothing's truly slapstick. There are a couple of overtly, physical moments, but it all relies on a steady hand in terms of the script. I think that's where you see his framing is the script and not within the confines of the camera so much. And I mean, it's really interesting. Hermano, you always say you like filmmakers to work in different genres and you appreciate someone. I know you always point a finger at Wes Anderson where he does the same thing in every single movie and he does it really, really well, but it's still the same thing. And he hasn't stretched himself. Stanley Kubrick has done just about any kind of genre, any genre film, but has put his own twist on it, his own unique spin on it, and they're all unique and different and interesting to a degree. And I don't know, I appreciate his take on a comedy.
No, I definitely agree. Like he's clearly dipped his toe into a lot of things. He's done sci-fi, horror, war, like drama. And this one obviously comedy. But yeah, I don't know. I could see myself liking this film a lot more. I think it might take a second or even a third viewing. But I guess I want to touch on something else. Like I guess the whole thing with the film opens with that I guess like the sort of like a warning, like title thing where it's like, oh, the events in this film could never happen. There were safeguards in place and things like that. And like I wonder, is that something that was added just for comedic effect, or is that like something where people were actually genuinely had a fear that something like this could happen?
That's a good question.
Well, after this movie was made, the U.S. military actually made changes so that something like this could not happen because nobody thought of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like a War of the Worlds scenario where like people heard that radio thing and like they freaked out because they thought they were really being invaded by aliens or whatever. Like I didn't know if that was something where people saw the film and just all of a sudden had this irrational fear that, or maybe going into Wall-E, maybe not so irrational fear that something like this could potentially happen where someone could go rogue and cause something so catastrophic like this. The other thing, I guess, with the Insane General, were there like sort of like sexual undertones with him and the British soldier? All right. I didn't know if I was just
all over the place in this movie.
Yeah, especially with those two characters. Like it felt almost weirdly uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know if I'm just putting this out there or if it was actually supposed to be there. I don't know.
Yeah, so also this is the time where like that was frowned upon in the military. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you've got the names like Turgison, like that's a boner. That's a fucking hard on. Then you've got Merkin Muffley. Merkin is a toupee for the vagina, and Muff is a 60s version for the same body part.
Jack D. Ripper.
Yeah. You have
Wow.
Bat Guano, King Kong.
Bat Guano, I loved that one.
My favorite, Alexei de Sadetsky. And Premier Kissoff.
Yes, Kiss Off. Anything else to mention before we get into grades? We're good.
Oh, the closest I came to laughing was the last Peter Sellers scene where he's trying to hold down the Nazi salute.
Right.
Oh, that's so good.
I don't know. It felt like it came out of nowhere too, because I'm like, he's in the film as that character so little that I didn't know what was up. I was like, is this some sort of like mad scientist guy or something, or what's going on? And then all of a sudden, it's just the kind of sort of not so subtly revealed that he's like a Nazi spy or some shit.
So
he's
cannot
contain himself.
All right, so you have Operation Paperclip that comes after World War II, where they took a lot of the top German engineers who built things like the V2 and the V1 rockets and brought them in to the U.S. space program. That's what Dr. Strange is representing. He's representing like that we did this as a country.
All right, let's get into grades, Hermano.
All right, I'm going to add a little asterisk to this. Like I said, I think it could go. My grade could go up after future viewings, but for right now, for this viewing alone, asterisk, I give it a B.
I'm going B plus. Actually, I think pretty solid, although not the best of Kubrick's. Wally.
You know where this is gonna go? This is an A fuck plus movie for me. I adore this movie on so many levels. I love this movie. It gets better every single time I see it.
All right, that does it for this episode of the First Time Watchers podcast. Donate via patreon.com/firsttimewatchers or buy stuff at zazzle.com/firsttimewatchers.
Talk to us on Twitter at 1STTimeWatchers on Twitter.
Or write to us at our email, firsttimewatchers@gmail.com.
Please leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher because we love feedback. If you have suggestions of a movie for us to watch, please send a tweet or an email. Speaking of suggestions, let's recommend a movie. I will go first. And what I'll do is I'll just direct people to listen to our 300th episode where we talked about 2001, A Space Odyssey with Mark Herney, not Mork Herner, Mark Herney. And it is actually one of our most downloaded episodes, top 5 or something like that, maybe top 2, 3. And it's a really good talk about one of the more influential films of all time, 2001, Space Odyssey. Wally.
All right, so we also watched Mortal Kombat. So I'm gonna recommend something that's just hands above, better than fucking Mortal Kombat. Skip that shit. Go directly to Hulu, and then you're gonna click on Dragon Ball Super because that shit's intense, and it's way more fun than Mortal Kombat, and it's everything that this Mortal Kombat movie wishes it could be. 6 months after the defeat of Majin Buu, the mighty Saiyan Son Goku continues his quest on becoming stronger. That's all you need to know, because it will become self-evident what this series is about as it goes along, and it's great. It is over the top. It gets further over the top the longer it goes on. So yes, skip Mortal Kombat. Go directly to Dragon Ball Super.
Hermano.
All right, Tim, stop me if I've mentioned this already. I'm going to do an anti-recommendation.
Ooh.
I don't think I brought this up because I was so kind of like down on it. Did I mention Tom and Jerry already?
Oh dear. I don't think you mentioned this movie.
Yeah, it was during our break. I watched it with my kids. Thought they might get a kick out of it. They'd never seen anything Tom and Jerry related. Of course, we all probably grew up, somewhat with Tom and Jerry. I used to watch it a lot as a kid. The movie, however, not good. Not good. I'd say comparable to like the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies that have come out recently as far as quality level is concerned. Basically, yeah, it's the Tom and Jerry formula. They do twist it a little bit where Jerry is more the antagonizer, kind of kicking things off, like their whole duel to the death, I guess. Michael Pena is in it, and it's like uncomfortably sort of like a bad representation of like a Hispanic person. It's weird. It's like so weird. I need someone else to watch this and tell me if like that is not a really poor representation of a Hispanic person on screen. Chloe Grace Moretz is in it too, and I don't know, man, she's just phoning it in. So anti-recommendation for Tom and Jerry.
All right, stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be discussing the 1997 Alec Baldwin Anthony Hopkins film The Edge.
That's the First Time Watchers podcast because we like to watch.